Good afternoon, everyone. It is Saturday, December 20th. If I look very tired, it's because I was up till 4:45 in the morning reading through all of the DOJ case files that were released last night, specifically related to filings, criminal filings, court filings. And so there are multiple entities that, when you're going through these files and this information that have been released, business entities that come up again and again. And so I wanted to make a video real quick to break down for you who some of those entities are that you're going to see in the files, so you can have an idea of who these players are. So the first is a variety of real estate and holding companies. 9 East 71st Street Corporation. This is the corporation that held the title to Epstein's primary Manhattan residence, which was the Herbert and Strauss house, which was located at 9 East 71st Street. NES LLC is also associated typically with 9 East Street, NES. This was another layer in the management of his New York real estate and real estate assets. Cypress Inc., Laurel Inc., Maple Inc., anything with a tree name, these are shell companies. So historically, these kind of entities would have been used by Epstein to manage property expenses, employee payroll across his different various estates in New York, Florida, and the Virgin Islands. So a shell company, again, is a company that exists under a company that exists under a company that exists under a board that exists under a asset purchaser that exists under a middleman that allows super wealthy to basically put their money and their finances in like 100 different spots to eliminate clarity and transparency. Then there are a number of financial management entities. So Financial Trust Company Incorporated. This was Epstein's primary private bank financial services firm that's based in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And it was through this company that he was able to qualify for all those massive tax breaks he received from the Virgin Island Economic Development Commission, which is why he had property there and spent so much time there. They welcomed him right in. Additionally, there's HBRK Associates Incorporated. In court filings, they're identified as an entity that was set up and then used to pay Epstein's longtime associates and co-executors, whose names you see on many of the Doe filings, because they're responsible for his estate. That would be Richard Kahn and Darren Indyke. And then LSJE LLC, which is a Virgin Islands-based entity that was used to hold assets or facilitate payments related to anything, upkeep, etc., of his private island in the Virgin Islands. LSJE might stand for Little St. James, Jeffrey Epstein. And then there's operational shell companies. So you see in there JEGE Incorporated. This was often used to manage the logistics of his private jet fleet, his other transportation assets. This is what people refer to as the Lolita Express. So you'll see them come up in many of those Doe filings as well for actively being involved in helping facilitate the travel of victims. And then Nautilus Inc., which is another additional shell company that was used for various administrative and operational costs. Now, following Epstein's death in 2019, these entities were named as defendants in civil lawsuits: Jane Doe 17, Doe 1000, etc., etc. Most of these shell companies are under the control of his estate, that estate in the hands of Richard Kahn and Darren Indyke, and that estate has liquidated essentially to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in settlements to his survivors, as well as the U.S. Virgin Islands government through the Jeffrey Epstein settlement agreement, essentially, which the last legal filing in all of those Doe cases is typically that document informing that the settlement has been taken over by that Jeffrey Epstein kind of victims settlement fund, and all of those court proceedings then would have ended. I hope this is helpful to you. I have a lot more thoughts, a lot more thoughts, and I want to be very sure how I present them to you. But if this was helpful, give me a like, give me a follow, drop a comment. TikTok throttles this content because I refuse to censor the names. But let's get out there and, I don't know, get this information right.